All right, so I'm recording on this computer. The first thing I need to do is fork it over to my personal GitHub. Fork it over. It's making a copy. Now, when you're actually on the job and you're working with code, you're not going to be forking over code to your personal GitHub, like production code from your company to your personal GitHub. You'll just be cloning it down straightly. Like this would be like your company's GitHub account, or GitHub, there's GitLab. This would be like considered your, you'd be at your company's GitHub account, and then you'd just be cloning stuff down directly to your machine. So with that, I'm on my personal GitHub. I'm going to clone it down. I'm going to bring over CSV, VS Code, do git clone right here in the terminal. I can list right here. And now I've got school interface 2. And we're just building upon school interface 1. Now I can cd into school interface 2 and open it up. Yeah, code, open it up in the current window. All right. So this already has school interface 1's completed code, and if yours more likely than not looked a little bit differently than this one, that's totally fine. But if you wanted to use your own code from school interface 1, you could have just copied and pasted your code into here. But we're just going to use the already completed code, the boilerplate, for school interface 2. Does anybody have any questions so far about school interface 2? All right. So with that, I'm currently on my master. I don't want to be on my master. So I'm going to create a new branch, git checkout -b, which instructor solution. And there, I'm no longer on my master. I'm now on my instructor solution branch. I'm going to list everything out, and I'm going to run the runner file just to make sure everything works. Just by doing Python runner, and I get my an array of staff objects and an array of student objects as well. All right, so let's go back to the README. So it says, let's think about our program from the user's point of view for a moment. The first thing we want to see when a program starts is a menu that lists all the action that a user can take. So it should say, like, what would you like to do? Options, list all students, view an individual student by ID, add a student, remove a student by their ID, or quit. So let's create our menu first, and then we can work down the list and implement each feature at a time. So replace the lines that are printing the staff and student variables with this code for the menu. So I'm just going to copy that, and that's in our runner file. And I'm going to replace that with so. So I'm going to run that again just to make sure we get what we want. And then the program just immediately exits right now just because it runs this and then it doesn't do anything else. So the above code might look strange, but when you run it, you'll find the menu. Yep, we just tested that out. So right now we have a program that prints a menu and then exit. Not very helpful. We want to give the user the option to select one of the menu items. We can do this by taking a user input by utilizing the input method. So we can create a mode equals input. I guess we can just replace the print with input. Now if I clear that and run that now, I can take in a user input like 1, and then it just exits. And you can test that out by doing print mode afterwards. So if I clear, I'm in the terminal, I clear it. I can take in what we'd like to do. If I press 1, it gets printed 1 for the mode. So the mode is a variable. I don't know if I like that. I'm going to do a couple more right here and then say, I don't know, type input here. I just want to see what that looks like. So input here, I can do that. Yeah, import action here. I don't know, something like that. Just so it's a little more, I know explicitly where I'm going to be typing. Okay. Does anybody have any questions up until this point of creating a simple text menu in the terminal and then taking a user's input? Nope. All right. So we've got this right here. So we're going to have, yep, go ahead.
Sorry. So why did mode run? So like what? I guess I didn't see like a print statement or anything like that. And so, do you have to call it? Like, where are you calling
mode? Right with this input, this method automatically executes.
Okay.
The input method does.
Got it.
That's why it prints everything off.
And you could have called mode anything you wanted.
Yes, it could be like user input.
Got it. Thank you.
And which might be like more suitable. I can do user input right there. Yeah, let's just keep it as user input. What other questions do you have? All right, so we're gonna have our user choose options by their number. If they enter a 1, we'll list all the students. If they enter a 2, they can view a specific student's info, etc. We'll worry about the error handling later. So right now, if a user enters 1, so we give some boilerplate right here. So I can say if user input equals 1, like do something, do something, else, I don't know, what does it say? Pass. So right here, we want to list all the students in the school. So we create a new school object up here. We have a school instance, so school.all_students. Invoke that, and then it's supposed to print something. So right now, if a user enters 1, our program will run list students method in our school object. Any other input will return and exit the program, run Python 3 runner, enter 1, and you'll get an error. What does it say? Let's check that out. Python runner, action 1 says attribute error school. So if I look file runner, I'm in the runner file up here. Line 10, scrolling down. Okay, here's line 10. This is where the error occurs. This is explicitly what's causing the error. I'm executing this school.allStudents function or method. It says attribute error school object has no attribute all students. Okay. If I go to classes and go to school, and I'm gonna move that over here, split the screen. School doesn't have any method or attribute called all students. So in school.py method, I write a method called list students that prints out a numbered list of student names followed by their school IDs. Your output should be something like this. All right. So with that, I can do def all students. This is a instance method because I'm creating an instance of the school and then I'm calling that method. So it's an instance method. So what I need to do is in the list students method, I need to loop through the student self.students, which is an array of student objects, and print them all out, do something. So I can do, there's a few ways I can do this, or a couple of ways, yeah, I can do this. I can do like for element or student in self.students. And then like print student. I just want to do that right now and clear the screen. and see if I'm able to see all, and this should print all the student objects. There, I've got all the student objects like that. And I can call for, it can be like element, or it can be called anything, but explicitly each element within this, or each value within this object, the student is a student object. That's why I'm calling it student. So I can do that. But now how can I access the name of each, is it name? So action one there, not subscriptable. So maybe if I do dot notation, does that work? Okay, so I can use dot notation to get the name, and then I guess I can do print f string quotes name and what does it need to look like, and their ID. And is this their student.school ID? ID. So if I clear the screen, run Python runner, list everything, I'm halfway there because I need to have the index as well. How can I, there's a couple ways I can do this. I can do, instead of using looping through the array and grabbing each value in that array, I can use index student and enumerate self.students, and then grab the index period space, run that. Enumerate, there we go. So there's an error, I spelled enumerate wrong. So if I clear the screen again, but it starts at index 0. I don't want that, so I can do index +1. There we go. What questions do you have about this part, release 0, of printing out all the students? Nothing? All right. So we completed all this. Now we're at release 1, view a single student. Next, let's give the user the ability to see data about a single student. First, we'll update our case statement. So we're in mode 1, now we're adding if someone enters mode 2. So in a runner, I can just do that. So if somebody enters mode 2, it takes in an input as a student ID of what we're looking for, assigns that student ID to a variable, and then passes that variable into a method called find student by ID that is attached to the school object. So this find student by ID should be an instance method in the school class. And I'm assigning that student object to a student variable, and then I'm printing something that with a string that student. Let's see what this looks like. So if I runner, I'm going to select option 2. Mode. Yep. So instead of mode, I changed it to user input just to make it a little more clear explicitly what the user is putting in. So I can say enter the student ID 13345. I believe that is a student ID. And now I get an error. It says traceback, runner, find school, or find student by ID. School object has no attribute find student by ID. So in here, I can do find student by ID, takes in the self because it's an instance method, and I guess student dot ID. So in here, in order to find a student, I again have to loop through the student objects, the array of student objects, and check the ID on each student and see if it matches the student ID. So I can go for But student in self dot student. And then I just want to print the student ID. Is it student ID? Let's check that out.
School ID. But
Oh, it's school ID.
yeah, I was wondering why do we need like a school ID versus a student ID? Because they're both the same.
Right. I think it's just you can change that if you want. It's just the way this challenge was written. So obviously it should be like school ID. So student object has no attribute student ID. And I can figure that out by doing dir and printing 1, 2, 3. Just print anything. I can print each student. I can see all the attributes as age, name, objects, password, role, and school ID. So objects is that method. So it looks like it's school ID. So print dot school ID. So clear, runner, type 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. There's 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, and that first student has an ID of 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. So I can do a quick if student dot school ID equals student ID. I can return the student based off of this value or what this needs to return. I need to return the actual student. And now this will be a student object. Now I can print the student info. What if we loop through it and like no student exists? Can we return something?
A string that says student not found and then ask if you want to try again.
Yeah, like there is no student with the ID of student ID maybe. And maybe this will work. We can also even like do some logic in here, but it all depends on where you kind of want to do it, but it should be within the method. So if I test this, I just type in some random errors or random ID. It says there's no student with an ID of blah, blah, blah. And then you can say like try again. Cool. All right. So is that it? So after they choose student by ID, Python runner, let's see. Let's run this again. List the student 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. Cool. We have a student object now, but it should print. Let's see what it says. So we're able to return the student, which we are. We're printing the object in the terminal. But now we can use the string method. So does anybody have any questions up until this point about viewing a single student? All right. So the string method, so dunder string Python. Let's see what this does. When to use dunder string? I don't like that. Let's just read what it says. Converts an object into a string. Some objects have a string method defined already for objects we make ourselves, like our student class. We can define our own string method to control how an object gets printed out. I know we covered this in the past, but here we are actually using it to actually print something out in our application. So define a method dunder string or dunder string method in the student class that prints the instance of the student object in a more readable way. Something like this. All right, so let's open up the student object or student class. Actually, let's bring that up here under the init. We need def under string. It already fills in, types in the self, and we want to return a string that looks something like this. And whoop. And in place of Lisa, we'll want to do an F string and do self.name, age. We want self.age, and ID is self.school ID. Now, let's just run this and see if this is working. Python runner, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's not an action number. So let's clear that. Action 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. There we got Lisa, age 25, etc. All right, release 3. We've implemented 2 of our features. One problem we can fix before we're done today is the fact that our program quits after one action. We want to be able to run multiple students in a session. How we use a loop to include this functionality so that after showing the list of students or the data from a single student, the menu displays again and the user can input another section. And only when the user inputs a 5 should the program exit. All right, let's go back to our runner. So let's do elif user input equals 5, do something. So how did people go about keeping the program running? Anybody?
Using while loop.
Using a while loop. So while something is a value, continue looping through the while loop. I can say, well, what variable did you use to keep it running?
Put true in there.
While true?
Wow, true. And then it runs forever.
But we want something. Do we just do return it like that?
How it exits the while loop is the quit input when it asks for user input.
So when a user clicks 5, it should just exit? Or
Yeah. Quit with parentheses.
quit? Like so?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. Let's check that out. Action 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Enter a student ID. What if I don't want to do another student ID? So it's only looping. So the mode stays in. What if I wanted to like loop through? So I want to like get a different. So 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So I put the user input within the while loop. So 1, list all students. I listed all the students. Action here, 1, 3, 2. I don't even know what other students' IDs are.
I think if you put the user input at the end of the while loop, it would be better, because I think if you put 5, it will like, I mean, 5 comes this elif user input is equal to 5 comes. Oh, okay. It
Should still
works.
work.
Oh, okay.
Yep, this is one way to do it. You can also like set a variable of like run program equals true, and while run program equals true, do that, and then just instead of just quitting, you can reassign. I think this should still work. Yeah. Then 5. Yeah. So there's multiple ways you can do it. You can do either quit, but let's just keep it while true. Get rid of that. All right, is there anything else we need to do? Nope. So what we've done is we've listed all the students by taking any user input and creating a method called list students, which loops through all the students in this array of student objects, and it lists them all by student name, school ID. And if I enter 2, I take in another input, takes in another input, which represents the student ID, assigns that to a variable, passes that student ID variable into the find student ID method that is in school. Here's the student ID, loops through the array of student objects. If school ID equals that student ID equals, yeah, it returns a student object right here. So this is a student object on line 15, and then it prints the string of that, which in the student, we have the string method right here. And likewise, even if I think if we remove the string, it should still work. Like it should still print the way it does. Whoop. Clear. So if I do 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, yeah, it still prints the student, or with that same format. Then in order to quit, yep, go ahead.
Is that because of the dunder string?
Exactly. It like executes that when you just do the print. All right. So with that, now we can actually, we're done with this part 2, school interface 2. Now we can add everything to staging area, get status. Again, we have all the pi cache, which we don't want. So get reset, touch.get ignore, code.get ignore. Let's add in the pi cache. Come down here, I'm clearing the terminal. I'm gonna add everything, get status. Got my get ignore file in there. I can get commit to actually create a save point. Cool. So it made a save point. Now I need to push this up to GitHub, git push origin instructor solution. Now push this all the way up to GitHub. Now if I come up here, it updated my GitHub right here. Instructor solution had recent pushes less than a minute ago. Compare and pull. It's going to go over to Mike Platoon School Interface 2. And here's the base repository, Mike Platoon's. I'm requesting to pull Tom Preet's School Interface 2 on the Instructor Solution branch into Mike Platoon's School Interface 2 master branch. I'm going to create a pull request. check for ability to merge, has no merge conflicts, and we're good to go. All right.